It was supposed to be a calm evening on Real Time with Bill Maher. A royal guest, a sophisticated exchange, and perhaps a few sharp jokes about the monarchy. But what unfolded that night would become one of the most talked about interviews in late night history. Viewers tuned in expecting wit and conversation. What they got instead was a psychological chess match between Bill Maher's irony and Prince Harry's arrogance, one that spiraled into an unforgettable clash live on air. The lights came up. The jazz rock intro faded. Bill Maher straightened his notes, smiled toward the audience, and gestured toward the stage entrance. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Prince Harry. A mixture of applause and curiosity filled the studio. Harry walked in wearing a sleek navy suit and no tie. Casual yet smug. He waved half-heartedly at the audience and slouched into his seat beside Bill, as though he were sitting at a private club he owned. "Good to have you here, Your Royal Highness," Bill said, his tone friendly but teasing. Harry gave a thin smile. "Well, I'm not technically royal anymore, Bill, but I suppose the title helps people remember who I am." A few polite laughs. Bill raised an eyebrow. "Ah, so you're officially a civilian now? Just another guy living off Netflix and resentment?" The crowd chuckled louder. Harry didn't. He leaned back, crossing his arms. "I wouldn't call it resentment, more like liberation. You should try it sometime. Stop doing your show for a few decades. See how free you feel." Bill grinned, but the spark of tension was already alive. "Touché, though I don't think I could afford the kind of freedom that comes with royal inheritance." The audience reacted with a wave of laughter, but Harry seemed unmoved. He reached for his glass of water, smirking slightly. "It's funny," he said. "People love to talk about money when it comes to my family, as if you don't make millions mocking politicians every week." "Ah," Bill replied, nodding slowly. "So this is going to be that kind of show." For a moment, the energy shifted. Bill adjusted his posture, alert now. He knew the tone had changed, but he wasn't about to give up control of his own stage. "So tell me," Bill continued, keeping his voice calm. "You've spoken a lot about mental health and the pressures of fame. Do you ever wonder if constant interviews about privacy might be a little contradictory?" Harry smirked. "Only if you're unable to understand nuance, Bill." The audience reacted with a nervous murmur. Bill looked amused. "Nuance, huh? You mean like asking the world to stop talking about you while signing another book deal?" Harry's eyes narrowed. "I see what you're doing. You're trying to make me look hypocritical for telling my story. But maybe it's hard for someone who's never had global attention to understand what that's like." Bill chuckled. Dryly, "Oh, I think I understand ego, my friend. Hollywood's full of people who think they're the center of the universe. You'd fit right in." Harry's jaw tightened. The audience roared with laughter, but he wasn't amused. He took a breath, pretending to shrug it off. "Maybe, but at least I didn't build a career mocking everyone else's problems." The air in the studio thickened. Bill blinked, smiled thinly, and said, "That's true. You just built one complaining about your own." The crowd exploded. Laughter, applause, even a few gasps. Harry forced a grin, but the heat behind his eyes said it all. This wasn't going to be a polite interview. For the next few minutes, they danced around lighter topics: the environment, social responsibility, charity. Bill threw in jokes. Harry dodged them with arrogance disguised as confidence. But when Bill mentioned the Queen, Harry's tone sharpened. "I loved my grandmother," Harry said abruptly, "but the institution she represented was flawed." Bill nodded. "Flawed, sure, but she carried herself with dignity. Something we seem to be running low on tonight." Harry's eyes flickered. A faint smirk crept back onto his face. "Careful, Bill. You don't want to sound jealous." Bill tilted his head. "Jealous of what? Bad press and family feuds? I've already got Twitter." The audience burst out laughing again, but this time Harry's expression hardened. The smirk was gone. His voice lowered. "You think this is all a joke, don't you? You think being royal means you don't bleed like everyone else." Bill looked directly at him, tone even but edged with steel. "No, Harry. I think being royal means you should have learned grace." The audience went silent for a moment. That kind of silence that means everyone senses the tension but can't look away. Harry broke it first with a scoff. Grace is overrated. Bill smiled slowly, sensing both danger and opportunity. Then tonight's going to be perfect. The crowd laughed again, but it wasn't cheerful laughter anymore. It was the kind that hangs between admiration and discomfort, the kind that said, something's about to break. And Bill Maher knew, deep down, that this interview was about to turn from witty television into a slow, live implosion. The mid-show applause washed over the set like rain that didn't quite cool the air. Bill shuffled his blue cards, eyes skimming bullet points he didn't really need. He'd been doing this long enough to feel the center of gravity in a room, and right now it was tilting toward a cliff. Let's try something simple, Bill said, voice in that velvet register he uses right before the thrust. You've criticized the tabloids for invading your privacy, fair, but you also filmed a 6-part documentary about your private life. Isn't that like condemning sugar at a bakery while frosting cupcakes in the back? A ripple of laughter. Harry didn't blink. The difference is consent, Bill. My story told by me, not scavenged. That's called agency. Sure, Bill said, nodding. But agency isn't an invisibility cloak. When you monetize your life, people are going to audit the receipts. Harry leaned forward, elbows on knees, the pose of a man filing his displeasure under public service. Maybe you're confusing public interest with public entitlement. You think buying a ticket means you own the show. And you think starring in the show means you're above the reviews, Bill countered. A low "oh" from the crowd. Harry's smile thinned. He glanced at the audience like they were a jury too easily amused by one-liners. Bill softened, half genuine, half host instinct. Look, I'm not denying your trauma. I'm asking whether you sometimes mistake criticism for persecution. There's a difference. Harry exhaled, a theatrical patience. It's amazing how often people with microphones explain my life to me. Well, Bill said, they keep inviting you on. That's because people are invested in change, Harry replied. I'm pushing institutions to evolve. Press, monarchy, the parasocial culture. If that makes people uncomfortable, I can live with it. Uncomfortable is my brand, Bill said, but you're not making them uncomfortable with inconvenient truths. You're making them uncomfortable with the sense that you consider yourself, what's the polite word? Exceptional. Harry's eyes flashed. I am an exception, Bill. I didn't choose this. I adapted. Bill held up both palms. Okay, Darwin, let's talk adaptation. He checked his card, then tossed it aside. In your book, you detail a lot. Frostbite, fights, fields of poppies. Thanks for that imagery. Family texts. You torch the bridge and then complain about the smoke. Why publish what you say you wish had remained private? Harry's jaw tightened. Because secrecy is how abuse survives. Sunlight disinfects. And also sells, Bill added, gentle as a scalpel. Laughter, then a hush. Harry gave a sardonic nod. Right, let's pretend you don't get paid to take people apart for sport. That's not what I do, Bill said, cool, returning to the voice. I take ideas apart. If a person is welded to their ideas, sparks will fly. Harry sat back, feigning boredom. This is classic American late night. Punchy monologues, smug righteousness, call it free speech and go home. Bill's eyebrows went up. You do realize smug righteousness is usually the monarch's job, yes? The audience cracked up. Harry looked toward the rafters, then back to Bill with a smile that didn't commute to warmth. You're very proud of that one. I am, Bill said. My writers will want joint custody. He shifted again. Let's ground this. You've said you left to protect your family's mental health, but also pursued a media blitz that guarantees they'll never be left alone. Do you see why people smell contradiction? I see why people prefer easy narratives, Harry shot back. Hero, villain, jester. You're the jester. I get the role. Bill's smile cooled a degree. I prefer satirist. Jester wore bells, I wear ratings. The crowd laughed. Harry didn't. There it is, the performance. You're on a TV show, Harry. You were never at a monastery. Silence dilated, then Bill put on his best mediator tone. Okay, reset. What do you want from the public, honestly? If you could script the expectation, what would it be? Harry answered too fast. Respect. For what? Bill asked. For the fact I'm a human being. You're not getting docked for being human, Bill said. You're getting audited for being special while insisting you're ordinary. Pick a lane. Harry folded his arms again, gaze drilling past the cameras. Maybe the issue is you can't process any reality that isn't flattened into punchlines. And maybe the issue, Bill replied, is you can't process that criticism isn't cruelty. Sometimes it's the mirror. Harry's laugh came out sharp. From a man whose job is to interrupt people and call it enlightenment. Bill blinked once. I've been called worse by better. A beat. The audience loved the line. Harry loved none of this. Bill proceeded, voice even. You talk about duty. In your old life, duty was ceremonial. In your new life, duty is rhetorical. You tell the world what it should be and bristle when it asks who elected you. Nobody elected you either, Harry said. I was hired and I can be fired, Bill replied. The monarchy hasn't tried that HR model. Harry smiled without any joy. The monarchy has its own forms of firing. We just call it exile. A sympathetic murmur from a few rows. Bill clocked it. Fair, and I don't begrudge you leaving. I do question the world tour of grievance that followed. Truth is not grievance, Harry said. Depends how often you invoice it, Bill said softly. That landed. Harry's face went redder than the on-air light. For a moment, he looked like a man deciding whether to cool down or combust. He chose the third option, contempt. You're clever, Bill. Clever men think their cynicism is wisdom. And entitled men think their pain is policy, Bill returned. The audience drew breath. A line had been crossed, or at least fingered. Bill saw the producer in the wings. Small circle motion. Keep moving, keep it funny. He tried. Okay, Bill said, lighter tone. Let's do new rules early. New rule, if you demand privacy, stop giving your therapist a co-producer credit. Laughs burst, then scattered, when Harry leaned into his mic. New rule, if you want decency, stop punching down and calling it satire. Bill's eyes narrowed just enough for the ear camera to catch it. I don't punch down, I punch up. Tonight, up happens to be a man who thinks he's beyond the weight class. Harry clapped once, slow and sarcastic. Bravo. Bill stacked his cards, square as a blade. We're going to take a break, he said to camera, smile back on his face like a borrowed mask. When we return, we'll try one more time to have a conversation instead of a coronation. Applause rose, the band played them out. As the red light died, Bill glanced at Harry. You okay? Harry's answer was a whisper shaped like a warning. I'm fine, but stop talking to me like you're the headmaster. Bill's reply was quiet steel. Then stop behaving like the prefect. Harry looked away. A stagehand refilled waters nobody would drink. The floor manager counted down to the return. Bill inhaled, exhaled, and turned to face the nation with a smile that said, Round 3 is coming. The lights came back up, and the real-time theme faded beneath Bill Maher's calm voice. We're back with Prince Harry, and I think we've both had enough water to make it through the next round, he quipped, earning a few uneasy laughs from the audience. Harry didn't laugh. He sat stiffly, his hands folded in his lap, looking like someone being forced to attend his own roast. The tension that had simmered in part 2 now hung thick enough to taste. Bill smiled, the kind of smile he used when he knew he was walking a tightrope. All right, let's reset. Let's talk about something positive. You've done a lot of advocacy work for mental health. That's important. I respect that. Good, Harry said curtly. At least you respect something. The audience groaned softly. Bill chuckled, deflecting. Well, I try to. That's my therapy. Harry leaned back. Maybe you should try actual therapy. It might make your humor less bitter. That one hit the air like a slap. The crowd gasped. Bill nodded slowly. Okay. You're going for the jugular now. I admire that. Takes guts to psychoanalyze a man with a monologue segment. It's not psychoanalysis, Harry said coolly. It's observation. You seem like someone who hides behind jokes to avoid real feelings. Bill folded his hands. You mean like a certain prince who hides behind interviews to avoid self-awareness? That got a mix of laughter and applause. Harry's jaw flexed. You really don't know when to stop, do you? And you really don't know when to start, Bill replied, his voice calm but cutting. We invited you here to talk about your causes, your work, but all you've done is insult the platform that gave you a voice. That's irony, Your Highness. Harry laughed bitterly. Irony is thinking people tune in for your opinions when really they just want to see you argue. Bill raised his eyebrows. And yet here you are arguing. Maybe you fit right in. The audience laughed again, but now even that laughter felt nervous, uncertain of where the line was anymore. Bill shifted slightly in his chair. Let's get serious for a moment. You've been very critical of the media, understandably, but you're on one of the biggest platforms in America. Do you not see how that looks contradictory? Harry's lips curled. You journalists love that word, don't you? Contradictory. It's like your security blanket when you can't handle someone smarter than you. The crowd reacted with a low rumble, half gasp, half disbelief. Bill blinked, surprised but composed. Smarter than me, huh? That's a bold claim. You might want to stop before you start sounding like Kanye. Laughter erupted again, but Harry didn't flinch. At least he built something. You just sit here and tear people down for ratings. Bill inhaled slowly. I think you've confused satire with destruction. I don't tear people down. I expose nonsense. You've just given me a 2-hour buffet of it. The audience howled, but Harry's face was stone. You're exactly why people hate the media, he snapped. You twist words, mock pain, and pretend it's all in good fun. I don't mock pain, Bill replied sharply. I mock hypocrisy, there's a difference. And right now, you're making it very easy. Harry smirked. I'm sure that's what you tell yourself at night to sleep. The words hung there like smoke. Bill's face shifted, not angry but disappointed. You know what, Harry? You've had every opportunity tonight to be insightful, to show people who you really are. And instead, you've chosen to sneer at everyone who asks a question. That's not confidence, that's insecurity with a British accent. The crowd gasped. The tension snapped tight. Harry leaned forward, his voice low. You think because you sit behind a desk, you get to lecture me on self-awareness? Bill matched his posture, unblinking. No, I think because I've built something on honesty and consistency, I get to call out a man who can't handle a simple question without turning it into therapy hour. Harry exhaled hard, shaking his head. You Americans love pretending you're the moral compass of the world. Maybe that's why your country's falling apart. Now even the audience turned. The laughter stopped completely. Bill didn't move for several seconds. Then he spoke, quietly but firmly. You just insulted an entire country on live television, Harry. I hope you're proud. Harry shrugged. Truth hurts, doesn't it? Bill gave a slow nod. No. Arrogance hurts, and you're bleeding from it. The audience murmured, torn between admiration and discomfort. The energy in the room had shifted from humor to confrontation. Bill finally looked toward the camera. I've interviewed presidents, popes, scientists, and lunatics. And I can tell you, arrogance always sounds the same, no matter what. Crown it wears. Harry stood up suddenly. Are you calling me a lunatic now? Bill stayed seated, voice calm as glass. No, I'm calling you exhausting. The crowd erupted. Laughter, gasps, scattered applause. Harry's face turned crimson. Bill glanced to the side stage where the producer was frantically gesturing. He ignored it. We're going to take another short break, he said smoothly. And when we come back, maybe, just maybe, we'll see if the prince can find a sense of humor. Harry muttered something under his breath. The microphones caught only the word pathetic. Bill smiled faintly. And on that note, don't go anywhere. The band struck up its cue as the studio lights dimmed. The audience clapped awkwardly. The crew rushed in to reset. But as the red on-air light faded, Bill Maher leaned forward, voice low and serious. Keep this up, he said to Harry, and you're going to learn what it feels like when people stop laughing for good. Harry didn't answer. He just smirked. that same entitled grin, and looked away. Bill sat back, eyes narrowing. He'd seen difficult guests before. But this one? This one was about to make history, party for all the wrong reasons. The red-on air light flickered back to life. Bill Maher shuffled his notes like a man giving himself one last chance to rescue a lost cause. The audience sat quieter than usual. They could feel it, the tension that had built for nearly an hour, humming like static before a storm. Bill leaned in, voice calm and measured. Welcome back to Real Time. We're here with Prince Harry, who seems to have some very strong opinions about the press, the monarchy, and apparently the United States. Harry smirked. I call them facts, Bill. But sure, you can call them opinions if that makes you feel more comfortable. A few people in the crowd gave polite, uncertain laughs. Bill's jaw shifted, that subtle sign he was still holding on to civility, but the leash was slipping. Comfort's overrated, Bill said. I work in television. Let's talk about facts then. You say you value privacy, yet you've built a brand on oversharing. Memoir, interviews, documentaries. That's not privacy. That's production. Harry's eyes hardened. You really think you're clever, don't you? You sit there pretending to be objective when all you do is provoke people for sport. Bill didn't flinch. I provoke conversation. Big difference. You provoke pity. The room gasped. Harry blinked, stunned. Not by what was said, but by how calmly it was delivered. You know what? Harry said, straightening his posture. You're a perfect example of American hypocrisy. You talk about freedom of speech, but you can't handle hearing something that challenges your fragile worldview. Bill raised an eyebrow. Oh, I can handle plenty. I just prefer conversation over condescension. Condescension? Harry scoffed. That's rich. Coming from a man who's built his career mocking people who can't fight back? Bill leaned forward slightly, his tone dropping to that razor-thin balance between wit and warning. I've had presidents, generals, and billionaires sitting in that chair, and they all managed to make it through an interview without acting like spoiled royalty. The audience broke into a mix of laughter and applause. Harry glared, cheeks flushing. You think I'm spoiled because I won't let you control the narrative, Harry said, voice sharp. No, Bill said. I think you're spoiled because you believe you are the narrative. That line hit like thunder. Harry froze just for a second, then laughed dryly. Typical. When someone speaks their truth, you turn it into a punchline. Only when the truth sounds like PR, Bill replied. The audience cheered. Bill stayed still, expression unchanging. Let's be honest, he continued. You're angry because people stopped buying the act. The wounded prince routine, the rebel against the crown, it worked for a while, but now, people are just tired. Harry's nostrils flared. You have no idea what I've been through. You're right, Bill said. But from the way you talk, it's starting to sound like you don't either. A silence fell. Even the crew stopped moving. Bill's tone wasn't comedic anymore, it was surgical. Harry's jaw tightened. You invited me here to insult me. You think that makes you brave? No, Bill said softly. I think ending this does. He set his note cards down. The audience shifted, confused. Harry, Bill said, I've hosted this show for decades. I've had tough guests, arrogant guests, angry guests, but I've never had someone come here with this much contempt for dialogue itself. So I'm ending it here. Harry blinked. What? I'm ending the interview, Bill repeated, because this isn't a discussion anymore. It's a tantrum in a tuxedo. The crowd gasped. Harry stared at him, stunned. You're throwing me off the show? Bill nodded. I'm asking you to leave, yes, respectfully, before you say something else that ages badly. You can't do that, Harry snapped. Do you know who I am? Bill leaned back, folding his arms. Yes, and that's exactly why you should leave before the internet remembers who you used to be. The audience erupted. Applause, whistles, cheers. Harry's face turned crimson. This is unbelievable, he muttered, standing abruptly. No, it's live television, Bill said. And it's my show. The difference between us, Harry, is I know when to stop talking. Harry ripped off his microphone. You're pathetic. And you're done, Bill said, nodding toward the producer's booth. The cameras captured it all, Harry turning on him, his heel muttering under his breath as he stormed off stage. The audience clapped louder, the sound rising like catharsis. Bill sighed, turning back to the camera. Well, that was one for the archives, he said, dry humor returning to his voice. Tonight's moral: even royalty needs a sense of humor and a sense of timing. We'll be right back. The theme music kicked in. The audience roared. Behind the scenes, Harry was gone before the credits rolled, leaving behind an empty chair, an echo of applause, and a viral moment that would dominate every headline by morning. Bill sat quietly as the lights dimmed. For a man who'd spent his career dancing on the edge of controversy, this one felt different. Not because he'd clashed with the prince, but because he'd drawn a line between honesty and arrogance, between humor and hostility. And Bill Maher had chosen, with perfect timing, to stay on the right side of it. So what do you think? Was Bill right to end it there, or should he have let the chaos play out? Let us know in the comments below, and if you love stories where truth clashes with ego, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We have plenty more real and raw moments coming your way.